Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna and normally I talk about translated fiction and obscure fiction, but today I was tagged. I was tagged a couple of times by, amongst others, Micah Cummins, by Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, I believe, by Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, and by Jim from Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. And I chose to do the Western Canon book tag because it really inspired me to do something and to introduce you to other books than you normally would read. So the prompts are, if you could choose 20 books to represent your reading of Western literature, how would you choose them and what would you look for? Well, I always look for emotion. Prose has only second place for me. It's the emotion that a book gives me. It can be shock, it can be laughter, it can be sadness, it can be repulsion. I don't care what it is, as long as it evokes an emotion. And yeah, that's why I chose these works, so I hope you love them. After choosing your 20 books, what blind spots have you noticed? Well, since I've been doing this BookTube channel, I've realized that I haven't read any of the Victorian literature. So no Bronte for me, no Hardy, no Gaskell, Wilkie Collins, nothing. So I promised myself to speed it up a bit and fill in the void. But on the other hand, my canon is mostly Western European, so Dutch, German, French, Italian, Spanish. I can't help it, I'm born here, so yeah. And what 20 books would you choose to represent your reading of Western literature? So I've made a list, and I would start with Tristan and Iseult, or Iseult. It was written somewhere around between 600 and 800 years. I believe it's the first time that it was told. And then we are pretty sure that the first texts were published around the year 1000, the 11th century, 12th century. I am basing, my version that I loved is from the 12th century. It is by Hendrik van Veldeke. Hendrik van Veldeke was an author that lived here 1,000 years ago. No, yeah, no, 900 years ago. And he was the first to write the story in Dutch, or the then existing Dutch. And it was the starting point of Dutch and German literature. So in this version, Tristan is the nephew of King Marke, and Iseult is the Irish wife of the king, and she's much younger, and Tristan and Iseult are in love. And Tristan dies from poisoning. That is the version that we know. Then another book, the second book is a poem song or a lies. It is, people don't know who has written it. It's called Eagidius, waer bestu bleven. Eagidius, waer bestu bleven is, of course, also in Dutch. It was written in the 14th century, or 14th, 15th century. And actually it is a love song between two men, actually. Eagidius is the one who committed suicide, and his boyfriend is left behind, and he has written a song. So people think, well, we think that they were traveling musicians, and yeah, here they are. So I will read it in Dutch and I will translate it in the prompts. Eagidius, waer bestu bleven, milang na die gezelle mijn. De koorts die dood liet niet leven. Dat was gezelschap goed en de fijn. Het scheen teen moesten gestorven zijn. Nu best u in de troon vergeven, klarer dan de zonneschijn. Alle vreugd is die gegeven. Eagidius, waar best u bleven, niet lang na die gezelle mijn, de koorts die dood liet niet leven. Nu bid voor mij, ik moet nog sneven, en in de wereld lieden pijn. Verwaren mijn steden die beneven, ik moet nog zingen een liedekijn. Nog dan moet immer gestorven zijn. That's it. I love it so much. Then the next one is, where is it? Here it is. I chose Don Quixote by Cervantes. Why did I choose this book? Well, when I was 13, 14, maybe 15, we had to write a theater play, and I did the writing, and my story was based on Don Quixote, and I was playing Sancho Panza, and I loved it, loved it. I still have very warm memories of this adventure. And then, okay, the next one is a book that gave me my love for epistolary novels. So it was written in the 18th century. It's Liaisons dangereuses by Choderlos de laclos. I don't really know if I know I pronounce de laclos rather well, but the first name I don't know. Choderlos, I don't know. Les liaisons dangereuses is based on the letters between Marquise de Merteuil and Vicomte de Valmont. And those are two evil people, and they have a bet to seduce two girls and make sure that they lose their virginity, so those two girls would lose face in society. And yeah, it's an amazing, amazing story. I love this book, and since then I love reading letters. I absolutely do. Then, of course, I have talked about this man a couple of times already. It is Cyriel Buysse. Cyriel Buysse is an author that my grandfather knew, and Cyriel Buysse came often to my father's. Well, my grandfather was a very good storyteller, and wherever he went, he was known. Within minutes, there were 30, 40 people standing around him to listen to his stories. And one of those people was the author Cyriel Buysse. Why did I choose Bolken? Bolken is a novel that is published after his death, and most of my grandfather's stories are used in this book to tell his story. So for me, it is a very special book. Of course, it isn't translated. I'm sorry about that. And then I choose all the works of Willem Elschot. Willem Elschot is also a Flemish author. He wrote during the interbellum, and so between the two world wars. And for me, he is the best Flemish author we ever had. I absolutely love his work. It's modern, it's well told, it's funny, it's very humane. I love it. I doubt that his work is translated, and if it is, it's probably not well translated. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. Then I also chose another book in Dutch, Kruistocht in spijkerbroek, by Thea Beckman. Kruistocht in spijkerbroek is the young adult novel of the 80s. It's about a boy who is teletransported in the past, and he arrives in the middle of the children's crusade. And because he's young and dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, people look strangely at him, but quickly he adapts himself, and he is one of the leaders of the crusade. It's an absolute magnificent story. I reread it recently after, 40 years or so, And I was blown away by it, and I doubted if it would be as popular now, because there's so many deaths in that story. I doubt it. Okay, and then what else do we have? Oh yeah, one of the first Russian novel I read was Anna Karenina by Tolstoi, and when I was 14, 15, and I absolutely adored it. I haven't reread it since, but I'm planning to do so this year or beginning of next year, because I really want to. Then I chose a book, well, not a book, actually, a protagonist from Coetzee, Elizabeth Costello. I adore her. She is a very unlikable, likable person, and she is the crazy cat lady, and I just love her. She appears in many of his books, and I actually had the chance to tell him in person that she is my favorite lady. A book that gave me the love for debuts. I really enjoy a good debut. And Nina Weijers is a Dutch author. Her work is translated in English, but I doubt it's very good. It's called The Consequences of the Consequences. This is the story of Mini Panis. Mini Panis is an artist, and she asks a photographer to follow her around and to film her life. And at the end during the book, you start to discover why she does this, and it's an amazing story. She is a brilliant writer. This book is not a perfect book by far. There are at least 80 pages in it that shouldn't be in there, but still you could feel how much talent this girl has. And now she is more writing short essays, and she's really good at that. She is becoming sort of our own Joan Didion. It's a bit much credit, but still she is very good. She is a brilliant writer. And then what else? Helmut. A book is not only words, but it can also be visual. And for me, Helmut Newton is one of the most influential people in my life. I have to be careful that I don't show a picture with nudity. Oh, there's a lot of nudity. I really love his work. I always did. This is a brilliant picture of Marlena Dietrich, and this is really important. So, I've always been a big admirer of Helmut Newton. When I was 13, 14, I saw a documentary about his work, about him and his wife, how they worked, how they developed concepts and everything. And I was mesmerized. I still, to this moment, know what I was wearing, where I was sitting, what day it was, what time it was, what weather it was. It made a huge impact on me. And I also am a very admirer of not exactly the actress Marlena Dietrich, but the image Marlena Dietrich. She created a whole image. She was a master in storytelling, but her own story. And when I was in Berlin, I went to see her grave, which is not easy to find, but I finally did it. And I was looking at her grave, and I saw next to her her mother's grave. I knew that she was born, that she was buried next to her mother. And then I saw, to my big surprise, that Helmut Newton was laying next to her. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So that was also, I was so, I'm not at all starstruck, but for those two, I make an exception. Yeah. Then I thought of Tonio, also a Dutch book by Van der Heijden, Thea van der Heijden. Tonio is a heart-wrenching story. It's the name of the son of the author. The son passed away after a hit and run. And this is the book of their mourning. And it is... From the first word, it gets you by the throat and it doesn't leave you alone. I will never forget this book. Then I would choose A Quiet Chaos by Sandro Veronesi. Not everybody likes that book, but it touched my heart, it touched my soul. So this is the story about a man who loses his wife, and he still has his little daughter. He takes her to school and he says to her, I will wait here for you. And he literally does that. So he waited all day in his car till she comes back from school. And he does the same the day after and the day after. And after a while, people in the village notice that there's a man always waiting for his daughter the whole day. So they start talking about him and then with him. And biographies. I love reading biographies or memoirs, and this is the best memoir I've ever read. It is by Marlena Abramovich. It's called Walk Through Walls. It is an absolute masterpiece. It was a Belgian author who said that we should all read this, and he is right. She writes very similar. The prose is very simple, but so addictive. It's like, a moth to a light. It doesn't leave you alone. It's absolutely brilliant. A must read. And then the best, I love reading diaries, and the best is much better than Susan Sontag's. It's this by Patricia Highsmith, her diaries and notebooks. Why do I prefer this way above Susan Sontag? Well, Patricia Highsmith wrote this only for herself. It wasn't meant to be published. It really wasn't. She hid it. And with Susan Sontag, you really feel that she is writing, after a while, that she is writing for an audience. And it's more like, look how interesting I am, and look how intelligent I am. And you don't have that with Patricia Highsmith. It's very raw, it's very painful, it's beautiful. It's amazing to see how her talent develops, how she experiences the heights in her life, but also the lows. And at the end, you can also feel her decline. It's an amazing book. So another book that is really important to me is written by Bill Bernbach. Bill Bernbach is the B of DDB. DDB is one of the largest and oldest advertising companies in the world. Bill Bernbach was a genius copywriter, and he changed the way we advertised. And not anymore. It's getting worse, but there used to be a moment where ideas were very important, and that was thanks to Bill Bernbach. The book is called A History of the Advertising That Changed the History of Advertising. It is written by Bob Levinson, who was at the time also a copywriter in the agency. And then I chose also a book that is not translated and probably will never be translated because it's too brilliant. It's called Cliënt E. Busken by Jeroen Brouwers. Jeroen Brouwers is one of the biggest Dutch authors ever, and he just passed away, and one of the last book he wrote was Cliënt E. Busken. It is a masterpiece. Why? It's because it's a waterfall of words. We are in the head of a man with Alzheimer's, and he loses his speech and his ability to form sentences, and you are in his head and you see all those words passing by and think, oh, at the beginning you go, whoa, what's this? But still, you understand what he's saying and what he's thinking, and that is so brilliantly done, so brilliantly done. It's a book that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I will never, never, never forget it. Then on the 18th spot, I chose Hunger by Knut Hamsun. Hunger is also a masterpiece. It was written somewhere in 1880s, I believe. And sorry if I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's over 100 years old. So it's about a struggling writer who is too proud to... well, he refuses not to be a writer. So he prefers to be hungry and to write, and not to be hungry and not to write. So it's actually the book that tells you that writing or being a writer is not a profession, it's a vocation. It's something that you do 24/7. It's not something you could put aside and I'll write when I have time. No. You write constantly. That's the way it is. And for me, life is very difficult, really difficult if you can't write. And I don't understand writer's block or anything. It's to me, it's just your inner critic doing overtime. There's no such thing as writer's block. You have to write. And if you don't know what to write, well, you start your sentence with, I don't know what I'm writing. I don't know what this text will be about. And then you continue, and you can be sure within minutes you have your flow back. And then I chose Blindness by José Saramago, I chose not only Blindness, but all his works, or most of his works, like Seeing and... there's another book where Spain and Portugal drifts away from the continent. I chose him because he's a master in conceptual books. I love the big idea books. I do. That's something that comes from my advertising past or history or presence. I don't know how you can call it. I'm still doing it. So. But I love Hunger. I love Blindness. I love Seeing. Blindness is about a sort of infection or a virus that makes everybody blind, and the government is in panic, and they throw everybody in sort of gated community, something like that, and there's one lady who chooses to be, well, the doctor's wife, she chooses to be with her husband, but she still can see. And she describes everything that is happening in the gated community. Blindness and Seeing is about a government that organized elections, and everybody voted blank. So that means is they didn't choose a candidate, they chose nobody. And at first they think it's a joke, so they organize a second election, and even more people voted blank, and it quickly turns into a dictatorship. Really amazing. And the other one is when Spain and Portugal is drifting away from Europe, and what does Portugal and Spain do? It is amazing. And as last, I chose Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, because for me it is the perfect historical novel ever written. Everything is so perfect, the dialogue, the intrigues, the historical setting. So yeah, that's it. I hope you liked it. I hope it wasn't too long. I will tag only one person, and that is Roy, I believe, from Yard of Random Books, because I absolutely love his channel. Go check it out. He's so funny. He's really funny. So yeah, talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.